Welcome, everyone. Today, we are immersing ourselves in one of the biggest televised phenomena of the last, quarter century.
Absolutely. We're talking about the reality competition show that didn't just get popular, it completely changed American network television.
We're going to be looking at the whole history of the show. We have the source materials on its format, its massive commercial success, and also the evolution it's gone through.
And that evolution was often driven by some really high-stakes controversies that, tested the ethical limits of unscripted TV. It's a huge topic.
The numbers alone are just staggering. I mean, we're talking about a series that is either in or has just finished its 49th season.
That's over 711 episodes.
It's so ingrained in our culture now, it's easy to forget it actually started somewhere else entirely.
Right. It came from a 1997 Swedish series called Expedition Robinson.
So we're really going to look at the power of that original design, how its creator brought it to the American market, and why it became, almost overnight, the blueprint for an entire genre.
Okay, let's unpack that blueprint. If you look at all these hours of TV, what are the core, unchanging rules that have kept so many people hooked for so long? What's the secret ingredient?
Well, the secret is in its brilliant simplicity. It mixes two different things, survival and social strategy.
Okay.
The whole mechanism starts with isolation and duress. You take a group of strangers, you strand them in a really remote place.
Usually somewhere tropical, right?
Historically, yes, for the American version. And right away, they have to deal with the most basic human needs. Finding food, making fire, building some kind of shelter.
So that shared struggle is what kicks everything off.
It's the engine. That immediate deprivation is what generates all the initial psychological drama.
So nature provides the duress, and then the competition provides the conflict.
Precisely. The show is built around these regular competitions, and they do two things. First, you have reward challenges, right, where they can win food or tools.
Exactly. They test physical things, running, swimming, that kind of stuff, and the winners get items that give them a little break from the survival part of it.
But the second type of challenge is much more important.
Far more critical. Those are the immunity challenges. They often test, mental skills, puzzles, or just pure endurance. And the winning tribe, or leader the individual, is safe from being voted out that night.
And that immunity, that safety, leads right to the core of the whole show, Tribal Council.
Tribal Council is the absolute pivotal feature of the game. It's where all the social maneuvering, the alliances, the betrayals, it all comes to a head.
So in this progressive elimination, players vote out one of their own tribe mates.
Yes, and that continues until the tribes merge into one group.
Right.
And from that point on, the players who get voted out, they form this very unique body. They become the jury.
And the power of that jury is what makes the game so different from anything else.
It's the most sophisticated part. The jury is made up of their peers, the very people they voted out.
So these are not impartial judges.
Not at all. They're emotionally invested. They were removed from the game by the finalists who are now pleading their case. And at the very end, they cast the votes that decide the winner.
And what are they voting for? What's the prize?
They're voting for the sole survivor, and the grand prize is typically $1 million.
Though it has gone higher.
It did. We should note the all-winners season, Winners at War, where the prize was doubled to $2 million. That was a move that really reflected the legendary status of those particular players.
That structure is just so elegant, but it wasn't the initial vision. We mentioned the Swedish origin. Let's trace how this concept actually got to American primetime.
So the original idea came from a British TV producer, a man named Charlie Parsons. He developed it way back in 1994, and he originally called it Castaway.
And he pitched it to the BBC.
He did, and they rejected it. It wasn't until 3 years later that it found a home in Sweden, premiering as Expedition Robinson in 1997. And that success in Europe proved that the format could actually work.
So how did this show, which was, seen as too raw for the BBC, become the glossy, high-production hit that we know?
Well, that's where Mark Burnett comes in. He got the American format rights, but he was really critical of that Swedish version. He even called it crude and mean-spirited.
So he saw the potential, but knew it needed a total overhaul for the U.S.
Exactly. He used his experience from his other show, Eco Challenge, to really enhance the production values, the cinematography, the design of the challenges, the whole feel of it. He shifted the focus away from just raw survival to this meticulously produced human drama.
The drama that happens when you put people under extreme pressure.
That was the core of his vision.
So he polished the product, but he still needed a network to take a massive gamble on a genre that was, at the time, totally unproven.
And it was a tense negotiation. The key moment was the pitch on November 24th, 1999. Burnett took his idea to Les Moonves, who was a president of CBS at the time.
And Moonves went for it.
He did. He saw the potential for something really disruptive, and he secured the show's run. The first American season, Survivor, Borneo, was filmed very quickly, and it debuted on May 31st, 2000.
And it was an immediate cultural shockwave.
An absolute shockwave.
It's really impossible to talk about TV history without talking about that premiere. Why is it always cited as the pioneer of American reality competition? I mean, other reality shows existed.
Because it wasn't just popular, it was a financial game changer. It was the first reality show to get truly massive, profitable ratings on broadcast television in the U.S.
And that success let the network take huge risks with scheduling.
That's the real legacy. You have to look at the risk that Kelly Call, who was the CBS VP of scheduling, took. He moved to the second season, the Australian Outback, to compete directly against NBC's monster hit Friends.
I mean, that move was revolutionary. Friends was considered untouchable.
It was an unbelievable risk, but it paid off in a huge way. Survivor not only got massive ratings, during that season, it actually beat Friends in the overall viewership number.
Wow.
And that single moment proved that reality competition could be appointment viewing. It financially shifted how networks thought, moving them away from expensive scripted shows and toward cheaper, high-return, unscripted content.
And that dominance wasn't just a one-time thing. It really defined the show's first decade.
Absolutely. The first 11 straight seasons, so from 2001 all the way through 2005-06, they all ranked in the top 10 most-watched shows on TV.
That kind of consistency is almost unheard of today.
It really is.
And it wasn't just a commercial success. It also got serious critical acclaim, which is pretty rare for a competition show.
It really crossed over into that prestige television space because the storytelling and production were just so good. In 2007, Time magazine put the series on its list of the 100 greatest TV shows of all time.
And TV Guide ranked it as well.
They did. In 2013, they ranked it at number 39 on their 60 best series of all time. So these accolades really place it firmly in television history, not just reality TV history.
We also see that recognition extending to the production itself, and of course to the host, who's been at the center of it all.
The series has gotten, 63 Emmy nominations in total? The production won for Outstanding Sound Mixing in 2001 and Outstanding Special Class Program in 2002.
But the most visible awards went to Jeff Probst.
Yes, his performance really legitimized the role of the reality host. He won the Emmy for Outstanding Host 4 consecutive times, from 2008 through 2011. That sustained acclaim really helped define the show's golden era.
So the show has kept its core, the isolation challenges tribal council, but you can't survive 49 seasons without constant adaptation. Let's look at some of the operational changes, starting with the timeline.
Right. For most of its history, the game was designed to last exactly 39 days. That was the standard.
That was the magic number.
It was. It allowed for the early tribe phase, the merge, and then the final jury phase. The only early exception was the second season, the Australian Outback, which was famously long. It ran for 42 days.
And the change in recent years has been pretty dramatic.
It has. Starting with season 41, in the post-COVID era, the game length was cut way down to 26 days.
And that was mainly for production reasons.
Primarily, yes. It was related to quarantining the huge international crew, but it fundamentally changed the pace of the game. It forced players to make their moves much, much faster. It just compressed the entire experience.
Now, even if you don't win the whole thing, you are still compensated for your time.
You are. There's a sliding scale based on when you're eliminated. Even the very first person voted out gets something, usually starting at about US $2,500.
And the prize money goes up from there.
It does, the longer you last. And critically, every single contestant who makes it to the finale, doesn't matter if you're a finalist, a juror, or the first one out, you get an extra US $10,000 just for being at that finale show.
The format has to evolve, because if players figure out the metagame, it just becomes predictable. So production intentionally throws in twists.
And that ability to reinvent itself is arguably the single biggest key to the show's longevity. Early on, the changes were simple, tribal switches to break up alliances, or starting with more than 2 tribes.
But they got more complicated pretty fast.
They did. They escalated into these game-altering devices.
The hidden immunity idol is probably the most famous one. It totally changed how a blindside vote works.
Absolutely. The idols are crucial. They give individuals power against a big alliance. But production didn't stop there. They started adding advantages that mess with voting power itself.
Like what?
Well, The ability to steal a vote from someone else or getting an extra vote for yourself, and then the ultimate counter move. The idol nullifier, which lets you cancel out an idol played by someone
It
else.
just adds all these layers of complexity.
It forces players to stay vigilant and constantly adapt.
And some twists were designed to give players a second chance, to subvert the finality of being voted out.
Right, those second chance mechanics really ramp up the tension. We saw Exile Island, which would isolate a player for a bit, often with a clue.
And then Redemption Island.
Redemption Island, which was a separate area where voted out players would duel for a chance to get back in the game. The harshest one, though, was the edge of extinction.
That's where you could choose to stay on this miserable outpost.
Yes, just enduring awful conditions, hoping for one shot to return. It was a real test of willpower. There was also the one-time experiment, the Outcast Tribe.
And speaking of fixing the game late, producers made one huge structural change to stop the end from becoming too predictable.
That would be the Final Four fire-making challenge, which they brought in during season 35. Historically, the Final Four was just another vote, which meant the biggest alliance could just pick off the last threat.
But this twist changed that.
It mandated that the two players who don't have immunity at the Final Four have to go head-to-head in a fire-making challenge. The winner moves on, the loser goes to the jury.
And the strategic impact of that was huge.
Immense. It completely negated that classic move of voting out the biggest threat at 4. Now, if you wanted to get rid of a threat, you had to be confident you could beat them at making fire. It shifted the value from just social allegiance to, actual physical skill at the very end.
In its early years, the show was really nomadic, traveling all over the world to give each season a fresh look.
Oh, absolutely. The early footprint was huge. They filmed in these incredibly diverse, challenging places. Season 3 was in Kenya's Shaba National Reserve.
Right, a completely different feel.
And season 15 took them to Zelen in China. They were in the Philippines, Panama, Samoa. That constant relocation was part of the original appeal. You got a new world every 6 months.
But that model, I assume, became unsustainable.
Exactly. The need for efficiency led to what we call the Fiji era. Since season 33, the show has been filmed exclusively in the Mamanuca Islands of Fiji.
And that's been going on for a long time now.
A very long time. It will continue for 18 consecutive seasons, all the way up to the upcoming season 50.
So why Fiji? What are the logistical advantages?
They're massive. First, it's predictable. They have established relationships with the government, with the local infrastructure. Second, efficiency. They can pre-build and maintain things like challenge structures.
So they can shoot 2 seasons back to back.
Right, which saves millions in relocation costs. And it also gives the show's brand this very consistent visual look.
It's just incredible to think about the infrastructure. You mentioned the crew size grew a lot over time.
The scale is astronomical. The very first season, Borneo, was run by a pretty small crew, maybe 75 people.
Wow.
As the show got more complex, more sophisticated challenges, more cameras, better safety protocols, the crew just expanded dramatically. By season 22, the crew was up to 325 people. That's like a small army you have to operate in a remote location.
The ultimate payoff, the reading of the final votes, has also gone through a huge transformation since the beginning.
The traditional format really maximized the suspense by creating a time gap. The final tribal council was filmed on location. The votes were sealed in an urn.
And then you had to wait months.
Months. The winner wasn't revealed until a live TV event in a studio in the U.S., which was then followed by a reunion show.
And the reunion had a few different hosts before the permanent one took over.
It did. For the first 3 seasons, Bryant Gumbel hosted, Rosie O'Donnell did the 4th, and then Jeff Probst took over with season 5 and has done it ever since.
Let's talk about those iconic, highly produced segments where Probst would travel with the votes from the location back to the studio. Those became legendary.
They absolutely did. They were meant to bridge that time and distance with this big cinematic flair. We saw him on helicopters, jet skiing out of the Amazon, even on elephants.
And our sources mention a specific planned sequence for season 29, San Juan del Sur, that shows just how far they went and why they stopped.
Oh, this plan was absurdly ambitious. Probst was supposed to paddle a canoe from Nicaragua all the way to Venice, California.
Wait, really?
Well, cinematically. And the climax of it was supposed to involve him recreating that famous Hey Kid Catch Coke commercial. He was supposed to borrow a skateboard from a teenager and do a little trick.
You're kidding. They were going to have the host of a major TV show do a skateboard trick on camera.
That was the plan. And despite getting some training, he apparently couldn't consistently land the trick during filming.
So what happened?
Well, because they couldn't get the shot they needed for San Juan del Sur, production just made a decision. They scrapped that whole transition, and they eliminated all similar travel segments for future seasons.
That's amazing. A single failed skateboard trick ended an entire era of the show.
It really did.
And how has the finale changed more recently?
The format shifted drastically with season 41. Because of all the uncertainty around live events during the pandemic, they went back to the season 1 model. The winner is revealed right there on location, just moments after the final vote.
So no more waiting.
No more waiting. And instead of a big live reunion, it's followed by an after-show special, still on the island. The exceptions were the pre-taped Island of the Idols finale and the virtual reunion for Winners at War.
The casting process is obviously crucial, getting that right mix of people. But the rules about who's even allowed to apply have changed a lot over the decades.
Initially, the rules were surprisingly strict, and it was all because of the format rights. It stated that only U.S. citizens could compete.
And that created a really big hurdle for some people.
An almost unbelievable one, in at least one documented case, yes. Todd Herzog, who won Survivor, China, was a Canadian-American dual citizen. To follow the rules at the time, he had to renounce his Canadian citizenship just to be on the show.
Wow, that's an incredible commitment.
It's a testament to how big the prize and the show were.
So when did that policy finally change?
It changed in mid-2018. After that, Canadian citizens could finally participate. The first one cast under the new rule was Tom Laidlaw on Island of the Idols. It really broadened the applicant pool.
And the age requirement also shifted over time.
It did. When the show launched, you had to be 21. There was one early exception. Michael Frost's now was 20. But then in 2008, they dropped the requirement to 18, which brought in some younger strategic players.
And then it dropped again.
In 2020, it was reduced again down to 16, which signaled they were looking for even younger people with different perspectives.
Now, maybe the most significant and discussed change to casting came in 2020, and it was driven by a network-wide mandate on diversity.
This was a major intentional effort to address criticism about a lack of inclusion on a lot of reality shows. In 2020, CBS President George Creeks mandated that 50% of participants on all CBS reality shows must be Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC.
And season 41 was the first to implement that rule.
It was.
So what was the stated impact of this mandate?
Jeff Probst was a huge supporter. He called it one of the most positive and significant changes to the show. The goal was to make sure the cast better reflected the U.S. population, which he argued led to more diverse and authentic stories.
And it had an impact on viewership too, right?
It did. Interestingly, this change also correlated with a noticeable increase in viewership outside the U.S., suggesting that the broader representation had a global appeal.
We do have to note, though, that corporate policies can change, and this one had a specific timeline.
And that's the crucial pivot. Our sources say that CBS formally rolled back its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in April of 2025.
Which naturally raises the question about what the cast will look like in the future.
Right. And the response from the casting director, Jesse Tannenbaum, was that despite the policy change, quote, nothing's changed from his perspective. He emphasized that they would still strive for a really diverse cast because everybody needs to be represented.
So the intention is still there, even if the formal mandate is not.
It seems to be, yes. A recognition that this direction is good for the show's narrative strength.
Because the game is designed to force people into these high-stakes dilemmas, the risk of controversy, from legal challenges to serious misconduct, is always there. And this next section requires us to really slow down and address some of the toughest moments in the show's history.
The legal challenges started almost immediately. In February 2001, a contestant named Stacey Stillman filed a lawsuit claiming producers had interfered with the vote on Survivor, Borneo.
A rigging allegation on the very first season.
She claimed that two of her tribe mates, Sean Keniff and Dirk Bin, were persuaded by production to vote her off instead of Rudy Boesch.
And were there other alleged errors that had financial consequences?
Yes, a complex error during a challenge on Survivor. Africa led to a big financial settlement. During the Final Four, there was a trivia question about which female player had no piercings. Kim Johnson answered correctly based on the producer's info, and she won the challenge.
But the information was wrong.
Exactly. The producers didn't know that another contestant, Lindsay Richter, also had no piercings. So Lex Vandenberg had answered Lindsay, but was told he was wrong.
And that could have changed the whole game.
It could have. CBS recognized the mistake and ended up paying a settlement to Lex Vandenberg and Tom Buchanan. It was a really stark lesson in the kind of financial liability that comes with this kind of show.
There was also a lawsuit about the sound of the show, the theme music.
Correct. The theme, Ancient Voices, by Russ Landau, was the subject of a lawsuit by a musician named Paul Winter. He claimed Landau and Burnett had improperly used samples from his song. The case was settled out of court.
We also saw cases where contestant deception created real-world problems.
The case of Denise Martin from Survivor, China, is a big one. At the reunion, she claimed she'd been demoted from her job as a lunch lady to a janitor because of the show. Mark Burnett felt sorry for her and gave her $50,000 on the spot.
But her employer contradicted the story.
They did, publicly. They said she took the custodial job before the show. She later recanted her story and donated the money to charity.
And finally, protecting the results from leaks is obviously a huge deal.
It's critical. A player's contract can include up to a $5 million liability for leaking the results. This all came out during legal action against a fan forum user, Jim Early, who was posting incredibly accurate spoilers for several seasons.
And how did they find the source of the leak?
Gurley was tracked down, and he revealed his source was the contestant Russell Hantz. He even provided emails and phone records as evidence. The case against Early was dismissed, and Hantz wasn't charged, but it just highlighted the massive liability contestants face.
The controversies often went beyond legal issues and into ethical boundaries, sometimes even involving violations of local environmental laws.
That happened during the Australian outback. A contestant, Colby Donaldson, removed coral from the Great Barrier Reef, and the production team was cited for unauthorized helicopter activity near protected seabird areas.
So these were direct violations of Australian law.
They were. Mark Burnett had to issue a public apology on behalf of the production and Donaldson for what happened.
And one of the most charged decisions ever was deliberately dividing tribes by ethnicity.
That was for Survivor, Cook Islands. The 4 starting tribes were divided by ethnicity: African Americans, whites, Hispanics, and Asians. Producers, including Jeff Probst, argued it was a response to criticism that the show wasn't diverse enough.
But the decision was immediately controversial.
It drew huge controversy, with critics calling it segregationist.
And did that have a commercial impact?
It seems so. Several big long-term sponsors, Campbell Soup, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, reportedly dropped their support right after the theme was announced. While the companies denied a direct link, the timing was widely noted.
We must also address the most serious ethical challenges the show has faced, particularly around personal misconduct and harassment, which forced major institutional changes.
This is where that tension between creating drama and ensuring basic safety really came to a head. One of the earliest and most troubling incidents happened on Survivor, All Stars. Richard Hatch, while competing naked in a challenge, exposed his genitals and thrust them toward another contestant, Sue Hawk.
And Mrs. Hawk's response really underlines how severe this was.
It does. Mrs. Hawk said she felt violated. While Hatch was voted out that day for other reasons, Sue Hawk quit the game 2 days later. She just couldn't cope with the emotional trauma. It was a deeply troubling event, and she chose to resolve it privately with the network, stating they had helped her deal with the situation.
Decades later, a similar, very public incident happened, and it led to the first ever removal of a contestant by production.
This is the Dan Spilo incident on season 39, Island of the Idols. Spilo was given a formal warning by producers for inappropriately touching several contestants, including Kelly Kim.
And the situation got even more complicated.
It did. Other contestants, Elizabeth Beisel and Missy Bird, were criticized for trying to exploit Kelly Kim's genuine complaint for strategic game.
And that forced a huge public conversation about what's acceptable.
It did. Beisel and Bird later apologized. The resolution was unprecedented. Spilo was ejected from the game off-camera by production after a report of another incident. This was the very first time in the show's history a contestant was unilaterally removed for misconduct.
And this incident clearly forced them to change their policies.
Completely. After the Spilo controversy, CBS and Survivor announced a total revamp of their rules and protocols. The goal, which was fully in place by season 41, was about earlier detection and prevention of this kind of behavior and establishing strict, clear penalties for anyone who engages in it.
Another major ethical turning point happened on Survivor: game changers. And it involved the public revelation of a contestant's identity without their consent.
This centered on Jeff Varner and Zeke Smith. During a really intense tribal council, Varner, trying to gain a strategic advantage, publicly revealed that Zeke Smith was a transgender man.
And the reaction to that was immediate.
It was met with immediate shock and rejection, not just from the audience, but from Varner's own tribe mates and from Jeff Probst.
The response on the show was decisive.
It was. Varner's action caused such an uproar that his tribe mates effectively eliminated him on the spot without a formal vote. Varner later expressed deep regret for what he did. But the consequences went beyond the game. He was fired from his real estate job after the episode aired. The whole incident sparked this crucial conversation about privacy, identity, and responsibility in a televised, high-pressure environment.
Given its huge run and ratings, the show naturally expanded way beyond just the TV screen into a big commercial enterprise.
Oh, the commercial reach is just expansive. From the very beginning, they've had extensive merchandise. It started with simple things, hats, water bottles, the buffs.
Right, the buffs are iconic.
And it grew to include jewelry, multifunction tools, and even computer and board games. And of course, DVD releases have been a consistent source of revenue for years.
I remember the attempt to turn this really social game into a video game. How did that go?
Critically, it went terribly. The attempt to digitize the social game in the early 2000s was considered a huge failure. The 2001 PC game, Survivor, the interactive game, was just savaged by critics. GameSpot gave it a 2.0 out of 10 and literally said, don't do it.
So not a critical darling, then?
Not at all. IGN gave it a 2.4 out of 10, calling it horribly boring and repetitive. It really shows how hard it is to translate unpredictable human interaction into an algorithm.
But they're still pursuing gaming today.
They are. That early failure didn't stop them. Jeff Probst himself worked with Exploding Kittens to develop a new card game called Survivor. The Tribe Has Spoken, which is set for release in January 2025.
So a physical interactive format might be a better fit.
That seems to be the thinking.
And the show even had a physical presence in the real world at a theme park.
It did, yes. At California's Great America, there was a thrill ride originally called Survivor, The Ride. It had a rotating platform and all these theme elements from the show. It's called the Tiki Twirl now, but that original branding shows you just how big the show's cultural footprint was.
And all that success has also fueled some significant charity work over the years.
The post-show auctions are a huge part of that. Fans can buy authentic props, torches, flags, idols, the voting urn, and the proceeds have gone to various charities, most recently to the Serpentine Project, which is Jeff Probst's charity for people transitioning out of the foster care system.
We know the first 11 seasons were these ratings behemoths, always in the top 10.
Yeah.
How has the series navigated the TV landscape today?
The trends show incredible stability, even with network viewership declining overall. Survivor was consistently a top 20 show through its first 23 seasons, and while it hasn't broken the top 20 since then, it still has this incredibly strong, stable, and loyal audience.
Which makes it a critical anchor for the network.
Absolutely, especially in a world where big network hits are so rare.
And the network clearly still believes in it, renewing it well into the future.
They do. The series was renewed in May 2025 for its 49th and 50th seasons. It's continuing with the successful 90-minute episode format. And the upcoming season 50, which is set to premiere February 25, 2026, is subtitled 50, In the Hands of the Fans.
Which suggests we might see some returning players.
That's the speculation. A big landmark season.
Looking back across this whole saga, the creation of a genre, the constant adaptation, the evolution forced by these really serious controversies, it is remarkable that this show, which came from a concept once called crude, has become such an adaptable American institution.
It's a profound story of adaptability and also of risk. The show's longevity is completely built on its ability to generate this intense human drama under pressure. The whole foundation of its success came from Mark Burnett refining that human drama element.
Which means the success is intrinsically linked to the high-stakes, sometimes dangerous, behavior of the contestants.
It is.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've seen that the game's core tension relies on forcing human drama under duress. Considering the show's success came from refining a crude concept, what level of human behavior should a production company be responsible for preventing tax when that behavior is, ironically, the primary driver of high ratings?
That is the question that really defines the whole genre, and one that every production has to face. A provocative thought to mull over as the show continues its run.
Indeed. Thanks for listening.